Welcome to Prompt Me Please, your go-to channel for decoding the science of behavior. Today, we're diving into subsection A1, the goals of behavior analysis: describe, predict, and control. To understand this subsection, imagine you're a detective solving mysteries about behavior. So what are your tools? They are describe, predict, and control. Here's how each step works. Let's look at describe first. Think of describe as the observation tool. You're an observer describing what's happening with as much detail as possible. To describe, behavior analysts focus on the four-term contingency. First is the setting events, the backdrop or environment. Then the antecedents, what happens right before a behavior. Next, the behavior, the action itself. And last, the consequences, what happens immediately after the behavior. Let's look at an example of describe. During art class, Max is sitting with his classmates. When the teacher asks him to draw a picture, Max knocks his crayons on the floor. The teacher then lets Max skip drawing and go play with blocks. Now we are going to break it down into the four-term contingency. First with the setting event, art class with classmates. Next, the antecedent. The teacher asks Max to draw. Then the behavior. Max knocks his crayons on the floor. And last, the consequence. Max avoids the task and gets to play with blocks. This detailed observation is description. It's like using a magnifying glass to examine every detail without jumping to conclusions. Let us move over to predict or connecting the dots. Prediction is about identifying patterns and asking, when X happens, does Y usually follow? Think of prediction as spotting trends in a weather forecast. It rains every time there are dark clouds. Let's look at an example of predict. So let's go back to Max. If every time the teacher asks him to draw, he knocks his crayons off the table and gets to play with blocks, we can predict that if the teacher asks Max to draw, he will knock his crayons off the table. Or if the teacher doesn't ask Max to draw, he won't knock his crayons off the table. We have connected the dots. Next, we are going to look at control. Here's where ABA gets exciting. Control is the science part where we test if changing something in the environment, the independent variable, will reliably change behavior, the dependent variable. Let's look at an example of control. A teacher decides to change how she responds to Max's behavior, so she first collects baseline data for 5 days. Every time Max knocks his crayons off, the teacher lets him go play with blocks. He does it every time. Then, the teacher implements an intervention for the next 5 days. Instead of letting Max skip drawing, the teacher guides him back to his seat to draw, and he stops knocking off his crayons. Next, the teacher returns to baseline. The teacher goes back to her old response. Max resumes knocking his crayons off. Finally, she reintroduces her intervention. The teacher again guides Max to stay at his seat. The behavior stops again. By changing her response, the teacher demonstrates control. She's shown that her intervention, the independent variable, directly influences Max's behavior, the dependent variable. Now let's test your skills with some exam questions. Question number 1. In the context of the goals of science in ABA, which of the following best represents the focus of prediction? A. Identifying functional relationships between variables. B. Observing events to note patterns. C. Determining the probability of covariance between two events. D. Establishing experimental control over variables. The correct answer is C. Determining the probability of covariance between two events. Question number 2. Control, as a goal of science in ABA, is demonstrated when A. Systematic observations are recorded without interference. B. An experiment reliably shows that a change in behavior is due to the independent variable. C. Covariation is observed between two events. D. The frequency of behavior is measured over time. The correct answer is B. An experiment reliably shows that a change in behavior is due to the independent variable. Question number 3. Which of the following would not be characteristic of a descriptive study in ABA? A. Systematic observation of behavior in a natural environment. B. Identification of correlations between behavior and environmental events. C. Manipulation of variables to determine causal relationships. D. Quantification and classification of observed behavior. The correct answer is C. Manipulation of variables to determine causal relationships. In summary, for describing, think of describing behavior like taking a photograph, capturing every detail without interpretation. For prediction, it's like saying, every time I leave bread outside, birds show up. And for control, it's like testing, if I don't leave bread, no birds come. But if I leave it again, they return. You've established cause and effect. So, there you have it. We covered subsection A1. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with others preparing for the exam. We will be releasing a new video every week covering specific subsections of the BCBA task list. Thank you for watching.